media.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, Katie. I'm not sure if I think the government would call that terrorism or not. You should really check with your lawyer. Oh, hey, everybody. It's Behind the Bastards. I'm sorry. I was just talking with my guest for this week, Katie Stoll. Katie, let's pretend we weren't talking. How are you doing? How's everything? Everything fine and innocent?
Absolutely nothing incriminating happening over
nothing
here.
Nothing incriminating at all.
Above board legal.
You had the right to own those F-22s.
Yeah. I can vouch for this woman. This woman has done nothing wrong.
Nothing wrong except watch Gilmore Girls.
Nothing wrong. Those were your recreational F-22s. You were allowed to have them. Absolutely.
This is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed human.
There was no anything inside those eyes. They turned black. It scared the hell out of me.
People, wake up! I'm the one that saw the murder take place by Krivak and DePippo.
Anthony DePippo showed no signs of remorse, appearing unfazed after being sentenced to the maximum.
I said, I'm not guilty. I'll take it to the grave.
Listen to The Devil's Quarry in the Bone Valley feed on the iHeart Radio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Paul Verzi here, and I want to talk to you about Paul's Best Podcast on Will Ferrell's Big Money Players Network and iHeartRadio. I sit down each week with a special guest, and we discuss the absolute best of things. Pete Davidson.
It's that, and then there's everything else.
Bill Burr.
Dude, his whole life has sounded like the first drop of a roller coaster. Just like
Mark Norman.
I mean, I can't even tell you, Paul, how crazy it was. It was insane.
Listen to Paul's Best Podcast on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
I've been hearing for decades that the markets can solve climate change. Today, we have more incentives for market solutions than ever, and emissions are rising. On this season of Drilled, Carbon Cowboys, the story of 3 market solutions colliding in one multinational boondoggle.
You gotta give Bruce and the guys credit. They're Republicans. They don't give a shit about any of this stuff.
Listen on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
It's Latino USA. I'm Maria Hinojosa. I sit down with New York City Mayor Zoran Mandani to talk about sports, immigration, politics, and the serious question of what makes a great New York City taco. But Mr. Mayor, as a Mexican,
what have I done?
What makes the best taco in New York City?
Oh, my God.
Listen to Latino USA on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
We're talking about Liz Dilling in part 2 of our BTBs on she's the first, honestly, she's the first. I had titled this as like the first fucking Candace Owens or something like that, or Laura Loomer. She's got pieces of those, but now that I think she is more like the precursor to Phyllis Schlafly. Like that's really probably the best way to, although as we're going to talk about, the reason why I thought more modern with it is she becomes crowdfunded in a way that is directly mimicking, I mean, both like how a lot of like people just in our industry make their living today, but how a lot of like conservative media people get started, where she is building this like grassroots, like she's like convincing people to give her money to go like root out communists in the world. Like it's a very modern business model, which is weird to me.
Absolutely. She tapped into that fear-mongering grift real early on.
Exactly. So she is ahead of her time. We don't like to be like, well, that's a smart lady, but that is a smart lady, just not in a way that most of us like respect people being intelligent. But she clearly honestly, is.
It's a smart lady who had the wrong influences and a brain that wasn't put to its proper use and then found its uses. That's what I was getting from our first episode.
I think that's a healthy way to look at it, as like, oh, if only the things that she was clearly gifted at had been put to a less evil end. But then the question is like, would that have happened? Would something less evil have motivated her this way? And I guess that gets into the fiddlier questions about human morality. Anyway,
it does.
The opening of The Red Network, which again, that's her second big book, right? That's basically this telephone book of all of the communists in the country and the secret left-wing agents trying to bring down, capitalism. The opening of this book was dedicated to the professional patriots, right? Again, it feels very modern, where she's like, open this book. This is dedicated to the professional patriots. And she describes it as everyone who is as crazy as she is and believes that the whole country is about to fall to the Reds. So this book is for all the people that everyone says that you're crazy, but you're not crazy. I know you're not crazy.
Man.
We all know that, the book's intro warned about the coming communist socialist world conspiracy, quote, with its 4 horsemen, atheism, immorality, class hatred, and pacifism for the sake of red revolution is boring within our churches, schools, and government and is undermining America like a cancerous growth. First off,
it's so embarrassing how little these conversations have changed. Sorry.
Yeah. Yes, very little.
Come on.
But also, like, the 4 horsemen, we know what the actual 4 horsemen are, and they're all cool stuff, like famine and like war and plague. And they're not
the cool
immorality,
stuff.
Class hatred, the horsemen of class hatred, the horsemen of pacifism for the sake of red revolution. That's just bad writing, Liz. That's just bad writing.
She's taking some real liberties here.
Yeah. Before she gets into the book, she makes sure to thank the staunch DAR, of which the author, unfortunately, is not a member, which is so sad. And she calls the DAR the best informed body of women on this subject in America. She just cannot stop licking those boots. Another person she thanks is Mr. Harry Young, who we talked about last episode, of the American Vigilant Intelligence Federation, and who brought the Protocols of the Elders of Zion to the United States, who she brags was sufficiently annoying in his anti-red free speech to be honored by intimidating libel suits filed by the notorious Free Speech for Reds Only ACLU.
Oh.
So the book was just a reprint of a lot of her old essays and a list of groups like the ACLU that have what she considered to be known communist ties. One portion of the book is dedicated to the Socialist Party and the New Deal, and argues that the U.S. Socialist Party was growing to subsume the Democratic Party and would soon take it over entirely, and that the New Deal was the instrument through which the Democratic Party would be devoured by the Socialist Party. How's the Socialist Party doing today?
Yeah, I know.
It's a fanciful document, and every notion in Dilling's book is, again, fanciful at best and outright idiotic at worst. This has been proven by the paths that history took, right? We know that she was wrong. Dilling labeled some 460 American organizations communist, radical pacifist, anarchist, socialist, or IWW controlled. That's the International Workers of the World.
The idea that radical pacifism is something to be afraid of is so wild to me.
Pacifists are just pacifism only serves the Red Revolution, right? It just stops people from being willing to fight against communism,
okay.
Even though, weirdly enough, in like World War II, some of the only people who, like her, didn't want to fight the Nazis were pacifists.
Things get messy in war. Your allegiances and the weird.
Yeah. She never examines that at all. So it listed 13. She lists 1,300 or so of these different organizations. Because she is a woman, she assumed that her own word would not be of value to the readers of her book without extensive backup. And this is one of the weirdest things about this. She repeatedly be like, I know you're not going to trust what I'm saying about this because I'm just a lady, right? And then she'll provide, like, that's how she writes this book a lot. She'll include male, so you don't have to take it from me. Here's a man saying the same thing. Like, it's both, she's very cognizant of her readers' biases and shares them, and that's part of the text in a very strange way. Where she's like, obviously, as a girl, I don't know what I'm talking about. Here's a smarter man saying it.
So fascinating.
It's
and
really
yet on
interesting.
Some level, she doesn't buy it. Because she feels called to be the one to write this bullshit.
Yes. Now, the Red Network was a massive success among the crank right, which was even then forming as a reaction of the moneyed classes to FDR's New Deal and the terrifying threat of communism abroad and at home. The first ultra-wealthy founders of far-right anti-communist paranoia have started gearing up in this period, and Elizabeth Dilling has helped to make a place for herself as one of the most prominent red baiters in the country. In the years to come, the Red Network would be cited as expert testimony in a dozen congressional investigations and legislative investigations, and Erickson writes, was used successfully in at least one court case. So a bunch of different, like this, her book is cited regularly. It becomes part of a bunch of different attempts to bring charges to different communist groups. there's obviously nothing of any real informative value in the Red Network.
Right.
The book existed primarily to condemn people by association using spurious rumors that would tar anyone left of Hitler as a communist subversive looking to outlaw Christianity. Because Liz did such a good job of making her book appear exhaustively sourced by citing numerous prominent cranks like the guy who helped bring modern anti-Semitism to the U.S., it quickly became beloved by police officers because they could say, look, we know this is a bad guy. Look at all the citations that say this group he's a part of is dangerous. Right? Like cops love the Red Network because they can point to a meeting of an organization in their town and be like, we had to break it up. It's in this book, you know? Like she has given them the main thing they need, which is an excuse to go brutalize somebody. The New Republic would warn in an article in the 1930s that Dilling's book carried weight with many law enforcement officers, particularly local cops who were, quote, only too glad to have a list of suspected communists that they could hassle. The book had been designed for this purpose, to provide an excuse for reactionary police officers, congressmen, and private mobs to attack regular citizens. On at least 2 episodes of this show, I've cited the work of pioneering anti-fascist journalist Dorothy Thompson, who, among other things, wrote an essay titled Who Goes Fascist that I've quoted a number of times on this. It's the one where she's playing that parlor game. She's like talking about like a normal party in the United States in like the late 30s and is like, I try to imagine if fascism came to America, which of these people would go? And it's a stunning article because it works perfectly today. She describes all the kinds of people who went fascist in our own, we've watched it happen in our own lives. Dorothy's a genius, was a brilliant writer. Dorothy Thompson described Elizabeth Dilling as, quote, one of the most successful defamers of private character in this country. And that's a very good way to look at her, is her business is defamation. And it's providing an excuse for police officers, for thugs, for bigots to attack folks by tarring them as communists. That's what it is. Her book is an excuse for violence, you know, more than anything.
Yeah.
Now, one of the things that made Elizabeth novel was her willingness to throw all pretense of civility and earnest disagreement out the window. Her enemies were communist traitor subversives, and all liberals were socialists, which meant all liberals were some kind of red, as Christine Erickson writes for the Journal of American Studies. Dilling's willingness to irreverently paint all liberals with varying shades of red won her many accolades from the right. What helped make the Red Network an instant hit among patriots was its accessibility to older studies by Representative Hamilton Fish, who headed an investigation in 1931 of communist activities in the U.S., and Senator Clayton R. Lusk, who compiled a 4-volume report of the Joint Committee investigating seditious activities in New York in 1920. Now, these old works weren't particularly accurate, but neither was the new data that had been gathered by guys like Harry Young, right? And neither is anything that Liz is bringing into this. What matters is she's adding all this together, which makes it seem like there's a weight of evidence behind her claims. The Red Network sells very well, but only some of that money goes to Liz. Many copies are distributed and given away or sold by third-party groups with mailing lists, and she doesn't always make money off of this. Still, even though this doesn't necessarily make Liz wealthy, it provides her with one-of-a-kind clout amongst cranks, right? She is now like the top of the list when it comes to this kind of person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I always feel like a broken record, but I have to say it. It's the same playbook now. It's
lying
the same
is the right
fucking
thing to
thing.
Lying is the right way to make a living, you know? It's just easier. Yeah.
And giving people the permission structure to do the bad things or to villainize people, to, bring the force of the law, whatever.
One of the most reliable ways to make a lot of money in American media is to find a group of people that a bunch of assholes already want to hurt and then give them an excuse to hurt those people, you know? Great way to make money in America.
Oof. Thank God she didn't have a Twitter account.
Yeah. People treated her in this era like how I imagine Alex Jones wishes he was more consistently treated, as a heroic truth teller who for the very first time had provided regular Americans with a way to fight back against the Reds who, were destroying the country. One of Elizabeth's fans told her that he consulted the Red Network almost daily, a fact that implies a life more depressing than I can express. She was popular among women with influential husbands too, which gave her a kind of influence in and of itself. And that's like an interesting thing to me, is a lot of her claims to like being able to change things is like the wife of this guy started her ringing her husband about Liz's bullshit, and so this guy like got involved in making changes.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate what a good business that is to be in this period of time, but it does work.
And smart of her, I guess, to pinpoint that as profitable for her.
Yeah, and she's very much cognizant of that, like, this is one way you can change the world is by getting wives to harass their husbands about stuff like this.
Yeah, very effective.
Yeah. Many of the people and organizations named in her book were Jewish, a fact that was not missed by the outright fascists and Nazi sympathizers that were increasingly organizing in the United States as the 30s wore on. The German-American Bund distributed free copies of the Red Network. So did the Aryan Bookstore of Los Angeles, which was founded in 1933. Oh. This was an institution in LA for years, for quite a long time. Have you heard of the Aryan Bookstore?
I have not.
Yeah,
LA,
the Aryan Bookstore. I wanted to look into this. So for an idea of the kind of good, respectable, conservative writing that the Aryan Bookstore published, I found a 1940 FBI file on the Aryan Bookstore that included several examples of their original publications. So one of these was a pamphlet for the United Florida Ku Klux Klan, who apparently paid to have their weekly newspaper distributed via the bookstore. Here's how one paragraph of that document read. Why the Ku Klux Klan? The facts about the Ku Klux Klan, its birth, mission, and purpose have been most widely distorted by the Jew-controlled news media. Immediately after the Civil War, the Jew radicals and revolutionaries who had gained a large control over the Union government sent their carpetbagger stooges, and I'm not even going to finish this paragraph because it gets a lot worse after that. You get the idea. Yeah. Liz's book is being sold by these people, right?
Yeah,
like, I don't need to finish that statement for you to know the company her ideas are keeping.
My God.
Yikes.
Yeah, I'm not exaggerating by calling you basically a Nazi if your books are primarily being sold in the Aryan Bookstore of Los Angeles. What I just read should make it clear that, as always, Elizabeth Dilling's anti-communism was a synonym for anti-Semitism and fascist hatred. Another Aryan Bookstore publication sold right alongside the Red Network was the Christian Youth Corps' weekly report. Sophie's going to show you a little excerpt from the Christian Youth Corps weekly report. It's got a very fascist-looking flag with like a plus sign and like a white circle and a red background. Looks almost like a swastika. Yeah. Our emblem, the red field, is for the blood of Christ that was shed for us. The white circle is symbolic of the ever-loving life through Christ and the cross. Oh, good. That seems... And then the first article under the Christian Youth Corps weekly report, what is Jewish ritual murder?
Oh, my God.
Another great publication. Again, these are just Nazi papers. Liz is just a Nazi. She's selling her book in Nazi bookstores because she's a Nazi. I'm sharing all of this stuff.
Yeah, I don't think that she would shirk from that description.
No. I mean, she, after a certain point, she sure would. But yeah, during this period of time, I think you're right. She would be proud to be identified with them.
Sure.
Yeah.
I bet she still continues with her anti-communism part, though.
So yeah, I'm sharing all this stuff because I want people to understand Liz Dilling's bedfellows from the jump are outright Nazis. This is never a thing she's tricked by. She doesn't like fall into this. She's not surprised by the fact that she's like standing side by side with these folks. These are her allies from the jump. And the fact that she's also popular with garden variety conservatives is because many garden variety conservatives were also basically Nazis until World War II made that too dangerous an ideology to espouse. Yeah. Dilling identified herself with these people from the jump, writing in the Red Network that Nazi Germany was only mean to Jewish people defensively. Quote, the large number of revolutionary Russian Jews in Germany doubtless contributed towards making fascist Germany anti-Semitic.
Oh, yeah. She's absolutely a Nazi.
Yeah, she's fucking for sure a Nazi. Easy to judge her as that.
If she was living in Germany, she'd have the armband, you know.
Hey, don't worry. She'll get to Germany before this story's over.
Oh, good.
Don't worry, Katie.
Yeah, she hasn't traveled in a minute.
Katie.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
For the most part, while she's been on this ideological journey, Elizabeth has had numerous allies, but none of them held a candle to the man who was her primary peer and influence. Her real, in a lot of ways, this is the guy that she sees herself as subservient to and sees herself as really like working to like aid and further. This is the great man of her era, the finest reactionary rabble-rouser of his day, Father Charles Coughlin.
Oh
now, we've talked about Father Coughlin in the past. He's come up a couple of times on this show. As you'd expect from the name, Father Coughlin was a Catholic priest who was also his era's equivalent of, he's another like Alex Jones type figure. There's a lot of these guys at the time. He is like a reactionary right-wing radio guy who's ranting about communist subversion on the air. He's infamous for spreading racist conspiracy theories about communism and the Jews, and he's primarily motivated after a point by an insane and unreasoning hatred of FDR's New Deal. That's a big thing for Father Coughlin in his heyday. Now, give you a brief overview of his life. Charles Coughlin had been born in 1891 in Hamilton, Ontario, to a devout Catholic family who encouraged him to enter preparatory seminary school at St. Michael's College when he was just 13. He'd graduated in 1911 as president of the first graduating class of his newly established college and then entered the seminary proper. Despite his confirmed status as a Canadian, his precise shade of Catholicism drew him to the United States, in particular to Waco, where he worked for the Basilian Order. Now, this basically means that he was really into this particular stream of like, it's Catholic, but it's like Orthodox coded monasticism, because like the Basilians are mostly popular in Ukraine. But again, it's a weird, like almost Orthodoxy colored Catholic thing as far as I can tell. I don't understand it well. I'm not super into Catholicism. Anyway, he gets ordained on June 29th, 1916, and started teaching psychology and a few other classes at Assumption College in Ontario. In 1918, the Basilian Order decided that all of its members needed to take a vow of poverty, right? So they're like, we really think that, what we're doing is best if everyone agrees never to have any money. And Father Coughlin is like, well, I don't see why I need to be poor. And so he leaves. Yeah.
I was saying he didn't like that,
Whoa,
right?
Wait, we're poor now? No. So he joins a diocesan clergy in Detroit, and his career continued along without incident until 1926, when he was asked to help raise money to build a new parish in Royal Oak, St. Therese of Lisieux. And he had been interested in the burgeoning new technology of radio for some time and decided to work out a deal with a local station to let him perform a radio show to raise money. Father Coughlin turned out to have a gift for this, and his fundraiser was a huge success, in large part because he doesn't just stick to religion. A big portion of his first broadcasts were dedicated to ranting about the spread of communism in the United States, which he saw in terms very similar to Elizabeth Dilling. In fact, she caught his first broadcast, and Amy Dye suspects it helps to radicalize her, that she watches him give this first broadcast when she's getting started as an anti-communist activist, and this is a big thing that motivates him. Now, Dilling's anti-communism was firstly rooted in her Christian faith, but as time grew on, she grew furious at the fact that most priests and pastors were not like Father Coughlin. As one biographer wrote, she became nauseated by her church's attitude towards communism, had to restrain herself to avoid being thrown out, and had no time to waste in a church activity. Right? So she's disgusted by the actual churches that she goes to, and she's really drawn to this guy because he's acting the way she thinks every priest ought to be acting. Right? She doesn't understand why every man of faith in her world isn't talking like Father Coughlin. So that's a big part of why she loves this guy.
The guy that refused to take the vow of poverty.
That would not take a vow of poverty.
It's so interesting. Just despite being raised a certain way, although there's plenty of contradictions in how she was raised, but the Catholic, just the religious aspect, but no, I know better than the priests. I know better than the church that I've grown up in. I find it distasteful. It's weird.
Yeah, I mean, I think it makes sense if you understand that, for someone like this, religion is not about what the faith says or even what God says. It's about finding the ultimate boss to back up that whatever your opinion is right? You have the ultimate call to authority. That's all that it is to them, really, I think.
Absolutely.
Honestly. So one of Liz and Father Coughlin's favorite Bible verses was Matthew 10:34. Think not that I am come to send peace on earth. I come not to send peace, but a sword. Now, this is you'll get this, that Pete Hegseth likes that verse too, by the way. They believed only organized political Christianity could defeat the radical left. By the early 1930s, when Dilling was publishing her most influential books, CBS picked up Coughlin's program, and by the end of 1931, it had more than 40 million listeners. By 1933, the year before the Red Network's publication, Coughlin had 106 clerks to handle the deluge of mail from his fans. In 1935, the Radio League of his parish had cashed $4 million in money orders in just 20 months. Coughlin, like Dilling, so she's, this brings in a shitload of money, right?
Yeah.
Coughlin is famous in a way that almost no one is in this period of time. Unlike Dilling, Coughlin was initially a supporter of FDR, right? Not out of any strong political conviction. He certainly doesn't believe particularly in FDR's politics, but he does believe that he really ought to be involved in a presidential administration. And so in early 1932, he actually meets FDR. And FDR promises, if I get elected, I'll go to you directly for like advice. You know, I'll ask you for your advice on different things. Because Coughlin, he has a bunch of things he wants to advise the presidency about. So Coughlin backs FDR because he thinks he's going to have an end to the new administration. And in fact, Father Coughlin invents a couple important catchphrases that help like sell FDR's campaign, including "the New Deal is Christ's deal." But after FDR wins, Roosevelt's like, well, this guy's obviously crazy. I let's block his number. Like, I'm not actually going to go to him for advice or anything. And Father Coughlin, when he realizes he's been betrayed, loses his mind and begins dedicating himself to attacking the New Deal as godless communism. And this is what's funny to me, because Dilling hates FDR from the start. She loves Coughlin from the start, but she always ignores that Coughlin likes FDR when he thinks he's going to get something out of FDR. Like, she can't square with that.
Yeah.
In 1946, Coughlin starts a weekly newspaper titled Social Justice and used it to attack FDR. He joined with an alliance of anti-Roosevelt figures to stop the president's re-election campaign, campaigning alongside Huey Long, Reverend Gerald L.K. Smith, and of course, Elizabeth Dilling. By the late 30s, she'd become almost as in-demand a speaker as him and was giving speeches several times a week at women's clubs, veterans clubs, chambers of commerce, and other civic organizations around the country. During the election, she often gave 5 speeches a day. Now, by this point, she'd become a big enough name that she was taking home 50% of the money she collected during her talks, plus expenses and an honorarium. So she's doing okay, but this still isn't big money by her standards. That said, her motivation to doing this is not financial primarily. It's because within the very narrow window of what women ought to be doing that she espoused, this was the path that allowed her the most agency and fame, right?
Sure.
That she's not breaking the rules, in part because she's not taking too much money, but this is like the most she gets to be out in the world while pretending that she's still holding to her values about that sort of thing.
Is Huey Long, is that the Kingfish guy?
Yeah, it is. Huey Long. We got to talk about Huey. Huey is, he's a Louisiana governor. Who is a fascinating figure.
Dare I say?
Side bastard.
Certified side bastard.
Yeah, for sure, side bastard. We're gonna. He'll get his episodes one of these days. He's been. There's just a lot to say about old Huey. They don't make him like that anymore in American politics, for better and for worse.
The Kingfish guy. Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, nobody like Huey. Nobody like Huey. It's a shame. I mean, Huey's last chapter especially, I do wish more politicians would take a leaf out of the end of his career.
All right, it's time for the bastards on Huey.
Yeah.
In the moment, it felt like it was going on forever. I didn't think I was going to live. I was terrified.
There was no anything inside those eyes. They turned black. It scared the hell out of me.
That was your first murder case?
Yes, sir.
Fair to say this was the biggest case of your career?
Yes, sir. Rape and murder of a 12-year-old child.
As bad as it gets.
I would think so.
People, wake up! I'm the one that saw the murder take place by Crevet and DePippo.
Anthony DePippo showed no signs of remorse, appearing unfazed after being sentenced to the maximum.
I said I'm not guilty. I'll take it to the grave.
Listen to The Devil's Quarry on the iHeart Radio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. And to hear The Devil's Quarry ad-free with exclusive content, subscribe to Lava for Good Plus on Apple Podcasts.
What did Black music, food, and culture teach us about who we were becoming?
2016 was sort of that last era of monoculture, where we still consumed things in community.
From Beyonce and Rihanna.
Everybody wanted to be Beyonce. I don't think we'll ever see another Rihanna.
To soul food, memory, identity, and the stories we carry through Black culture.
What does it mean to be Black
and eat in America?
So we were this group of people who knew how to work the land, who knew how to live with the land.
We make it do what it do.
Therapy for Black Girls is bringing together the conversation shaping Black life right now.
You will never make me feel bad for being a Black girl, for being a Black American girl, ever.
Therapy for Black Girls is bringing it all to the mic. Listen to Therapy for Black Girls on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hi, it's Alec Baldwin. This season on my podcast, Here's the Thing, I'm speaking with more artists, policymakers, and performers like composer Mark Shaman.
Once you've established that you have the talent, it's about the hang. It's the pleasure of hanging out with the people that you're with. You know, Rob and I was always a great hang. We would sit and kibitz for hours and then eventually get around to the music. That's what I mostly think of when I think of him, the time together laughing.
Lawyer Robbie Kaplan.
The great gift of being a lawyer is the ability to actually change things in our society in a way that very few people can. I mean, you can really make a difference to causes in the United States if you bring the right case at the right time. And
Marriage
win.
equality.
Yeah, Windsor's the perfect example.
Director Morgan Neville.
Film school teaches you all the wrong things about making documentary. What do you want to say? Documentary is all about your ear. What do you hear? I feel like my job is listening really, really hard.
Listen to Here's the Thing on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
I'm Mangesh Together, and I'm back with a new season of the podcast Skyline Drive. This time I'm diving into a rabbit hole of peptides, organoids, blood boys, blue zones, and brain replacement to try to understand what this longevity obsession is all about and what it really means to live forever for all of us. I learned about some rad science.
I can make a brain for you, and then we can test what drug is the best for your brain,
That's
as opposed
incredible.
to his brain.
Here's some hard truths.
I would expect Indians to age faster, but I did not expect it to be almost a 4 to 5 year acceleration.
And get myself into a world of trouble.
I'd say probably start bone smashing.
That doesn't work.
To make it look more defined. They say it works. I don't know.
Listen to Skyline Drive, How to Live Forever on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
So Amy Dye's thesis does a good job of describing how Elizabeth evolved as a speaker, using lessons that she cribbed from Father Coughlin's program as a rubric. Elizabeth Dilling presented her speeches much like Coughlin's, full of anguish and hateful words. Elizabeth would incorporate props into her speeches, such as red banners, YWCA songbooks, magazines, pamphlets, and of course, newspapers. Elizabeth would sing songs about the so-called Red Menace and ridiculed it at every opportunity. Her husband, Albert, would accompany Dilling on the piano and pass out sheet music to provoke the audience. A favorite of the audience attending her speeches was Dilling's impressions of Eleanor Roosevelt. Elizabeth would speak in a Yiddish accent, ridiculing the First Lady at every opportunity. Elizabeth's speeches would normally last around 2 hours, and the audience loved every minute of it. The audience sat raptly, fearing it might miss a good story or important reference. She was always careful to end and often begin her lectures by acknowledging that, again, she was, quote, just a woman with a mouth, in her words. And true to that, her audiences were never as big as the ones that Coughlin could draw. But she was easily the most famous woman in far-right politics for her time. And while a big crowd for her was seldom more than 100 or 200 people, her fans were unusually dedicated. Dilling later recalled, after one lecture, about 50 people from the audience arose to pledge their lives to Jesus as the antidote to communism.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, good stuff. Now, while Father Coughlin became his own cottage industry with a vast staff, Elizabeth continued to do all of her own research and writing. She is a one-woman shop. Her husband, Albert, was her only assistant, and he helped so often that his real work suffered. Over time, despite her strongly stated belief that women should not work and certainly shouldn't be the breadwinner of the family, her work began to make up the bulk of the family income. In 1935, she'd started reaching out to one of the most famous men in Chicago for help, Charles R. Walgreen. What business do we think Charles R. Walgreen was in? Get any guesses as to what company he helped start it? Yeah. This is the CVS guy. You're right. Yeah.
The CVS guy, Rite Aid. Yeah.
Yeah, this is the Rite Aid dude. Yes. Yeah.
I
the man
never
who founded 7-Eleven, Charles R. Walgreen.
It never passed my mind that Walgreens was named after a person.
For sure. Yeah, it's a guy. Starts as a bootlegger, if I'm not mistaken. Or basically, because they needed a way to legally sell people booze during Prohibition, and that's where Walgreens got its start. Now, Because Walgreen's niece attended the University of Chicago, Elizabeth thought that he would be willing to help her launch a war against communism among the school staff. And basically she goes to him and says, do you know how many of these teachers are in my book, The Red Network, as like card-carrying socialists and communist infiltrators? And Walgreen is horrified. And he indeed withdraws his niece from the college when Dilling shows him how many professors were suspected communists. Now, one of the men that she accused was Harold Swift, a president of the Board of Trustees she considered a cream puff type of red. Quote, one of the millionaires who like to play around with radicals. So again, this is not like an actual political firebrand. This is like a rich guy who's on like the board of a big university who's just not a dick. But she says, some rich men turned to booze, some to chorus girls, and others to communism. When the revolution came, his throat would be slit. And the communism is like, maybe we should pay teachers more and stuff. I have a feeling that's more what she's considering that.
Evil.
Given his position. Yeah. Despite her dire claims, the committee that investigated Swift found no reason to take action against him. But Dilling was regularly successful in ruining careers and launching waves of random hate at people she decided were guilty of communism. And again, there's a lot in common with like the modern progressive communist, fucking professor on campus crusade that's especially ignited. She
sounds like some Laura Loomer type for real.
Laura Loomer type. There's some Bill Ackman in there. Some of
this fear mongering around your universities and the education system
but she's one of the first people on the right to do that in an organized way, and doing it in a way that you could literally just swap the names out, and it's the same way this reads today when people accuse professors and stuff of this. Yeah, Dilling was regularly successful in ruining people's careers, but like her idol Father Coughlin, she resolved the greatest effort of her working life for the fight to unseat FDR. In speeches that election, the 1936 election, Dilling told audiences of DAR members and Rotarians that if FDR won re-election, there would be zero chance of another free election ever taking place in the United States. And we can see just how right she was.
God, she was prescient.
Yeah, she saw it all coming. That was the end of democracy in America.
Yeah.
While Coughlin was clearly a power-hungry opportunist willing to bend for the sake of his own influence, Elizabeth pursued her political advocacy with the feverish intensity of a true believer. She didn't just campaign against FDR, she dedicated herself to finding his replacement. Now, for some reason, she decided the best way to do this was to sabotage the potential candidacy of another man that she saw as just as bad as FDR. So she decides, I have to make sure the right man gets in position to take down FDR. And the best way to do that is to stop another guy I think is even worse from becoming a candidate. And the guy that she sees as even worse is like a potential disastrous Republican presidential candidate in 36 is Senator William Borah of Idaho. And her fear was that Senator Borah might win the Republican nomination, which would lead to what she considered a communist versus communist general election, right? If Borah runs against FDR, it's just two communists on the ballot. So let's take a look at this communist senator Elizabeth dedicated herself to destroying. William Edgar Borah had been born the year the Civil War ended. He grew up in Kansas, but moved to Idaho to practice law before he was elected to the Senate in 1907. He became known as a progressive insurgent against President Taft's policies, and fought against both the Treaty of Versailles and turned Calvin Coolidge down when he offered to make Borah his running mate in 1924. Borah was mixed on the New Deal, which is why he decided to run in 1936, but this is also why Dilling saw him as just as bad as FDR, because he's pro-New Deal, he just wants it to be somewhat different, right? And so she's like, he's just still a communist. Now, Borah also is supportive of the ACLU and was in favor of extending diplomatic recognition to the USSR, a country that undeniably existed. All this added up to a communist in Liz's book.
Which that's no go for her. She's been over there. You can't have diplomatic relations with those heathens.
You can't acknowledge that they exist, even though they do. It's a very we're going to do this with fucking Taiwan for a huge part of the latter 20th century, where we're just like, no, if you want to talk to China, you have to talk to Taiwan. And some people who are rational will be like, guys, you can feel however you want about the Civil War, but Taiwan is obviously not China. There's a whole country. There's millions of people, hundreds of millions of people living in China governing. We can't just pretend this island speaks for all of them. That's stupid as shit. But we did it for a long time. I love that.
I'm just going to pretend like I don't know what you're talking about.
Can't be communist if I don't say so. It's still a czar over there. Shut up.
It's like, grow up. La, 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 la.
It's really funny.
Acting like children.
As Dai described this is Liz talking about Bora, quote, both the public and the Chicago Tribune would call Bora the idol of Moscow. To sway votes against Bora, Elizabeth wrote a pamphlet entitled Bora from Within. The Grand Old Republic Party distributed 5,000 copies at its national convention in Cleveland. Soon after, Elizabeth started taking credit for denying Bora the presidential nomination. After basking in the glow of Bora's defeat, Elizabeth eyed another presidential nominee, whom she deemed as being unworthy. That person would be none other than Kansas Governor Alfred M. Landon. Elizabeth saw Alfred M. Landon as a night clerk trying to appear as a serious candidate for the Oval Office. Due to his apprehension, Landon had a hard time speaking in front of a large crowd. Elizabeth feared that Roosevelt would out-talk Landon, and therefore FDR would win the presidency. I gotta give Liz credit for one thing, which is she is right. Alfred Landon was a dog shit candidate for the presidency. Terrible, especially against FDR. You want to take maybe the man with the greatest natural political instincts who's ever become a president of the United States, and you put Alf fucking Landon next to his ass? Okay. Yeah,
Get blown
that
out
was
of the
gonna
water.
work. Yeah.
Just anybody that doesn't like speaking in front of crowds. It's not the job for
we'll
you.
get the guy who's scared of speaking of crowds to fight FDR in a fucking political cage match. That'll work. He's not charismatic. He's not the most beloved man in American politics. So it eventually becomes clear that Landon is going to win the Republican nomination. And so Liz has no choice but to try and help his campaign, right? So she's like, okay, I wanted to stop him, but he's going to be it. So I have to coax him into seeming competent. This would prove to be very difficult for her because she doesn't know Alf Landon, and her incendiary speeches and columns about what Landon should do have the effect of just making him seem worse, right?
Mm-hmm.
She's trying to help the campaign, but all she does is attack him, and it just eats away at his support base even more. The Dillings even named their dog, who they find stupid and annoying, Landon. And that fact tells you a lot, that both they named their dog after a guy they hate, and also they hate their dog. And
also, they hate their dog.
You don't have to have it. You know that, right? If you hate the dog, that doesn't need to be your dog.
Yeah. And you don't have to mock your dog.
Like a kid.
Or the person. Yeah, this is confusing. This is
confusing.
Weird.
I don't understand your choices.
Yeah.
But again, it was Landon or FDR. So Elizabeth and her husband set to work finding a way to save him from the Jewish people they believed were secretly running his campaign. It was one of they was like, well, Landon's not a great candidate, but all these Jews are running his campaign. And that's really hurting him. And it's like, nah, man. Alf Landon, Barack Obama himself could have injected Alf Landon with the raw essence of his charisma, and the sheer weight of Landon's anti-charisma would have drowned out the Obama cells. Or I don't. You know what I'm getting at, right?
There's no hope for this man.
There's no hope for this man. No one could have made Alf Landon a president. That was simply not possible. Until Hubert Humphrey, there was never a weaker fucking candidate for the presidency. Yeah, so Albert, her husband, this is Dilling's husband, gets a job with Alf Landon's campaign headquarters in Chicago because, again, they know that, we don't have any connections to Landon, so if we're going to convince him that we know how he's got to win, we need to get you, Albert, you have to get your foot in the door in the Chicago campaign office. And Albert does get a job for the Landon campaign, but as soon as he starts work, on the first day, he realizes something terrible. Both of his bosses are Jewish men. How do you think that's gonna work for this guy? Here's Di. She describes what happened next. Elizabeth was convinced that only overconfident executives supported Landon. Elizabeth made this assumption after she and Albert dined with 6 executives who claimed they did not need to campaign because Landon would win easily. She complained that neither Landon nor Roosevelt discussed the real issue, which was Marx versus Washington. After Roosevelt won and Landon carried only 2 states, Dilling's solace was to say, "I told you so," to the industrialists who had predicted Landon would win. They got what they deserved, she said. 2 states. My God. have some fucking self-respect, Alf. Honestly, if you had any self-respect, the thing to do would be to watch one Roosevelt speech, one of his fucking fireside chats, and be like, "Nah, I don't got this juice. I simply don't have the juice to take this man out. I'm Alf Landon. No one can blame me for realizing this is beyond my abilities.
My name's Alf Landon.
I'm literally named Alf Landon. You want me to go up against this guy?" He doesn't have legs and he's kicking my ass. Like, my God.
He can run circles around me.
Yeah. Like, Jesus. Just, there's a degree of sympathy you have to have for, like, oh, you thought you could beat FDR in 1936.
Oh, honey.
You. So Dilling got out of the 36 election with at least more grace than her idol, Father Coughlin. Coughlin had made the mistake of backing a third party, the Union Party. This was an extension of an organization that he had formed earlier that year, the National Union for Social Justice. And just by the way, if you want to think about like what a shit show it was when Biden dropped out at like the last possible minute and the Democratic Party had to line up behind a single candidate with just a couple of months before the election, Coughlin tries to do that, but with starting a new party in the last year of the year of the election.
I think he's overestimating his own influence here.
He is, and again, because Dilling loves him, but he's not the same ideologically as her. He is a fascist, but he's not a pro-capitalist fascist. There are pro-capitalist fascists, and there are anti-capitalist fascists.
Yeah.
And in fact, part of what the Night of Long Knives was, one thing that happened in the Night of Long Knives in Nazi Germany is that they got rid of the anti-capitalist fascists.
Right.
But in this day and age,
what was the name of his thing? The Union for Social Justice?
So National Union for Social Justice, and he loves the term social justice.
Not in line with her.
It isn't. Social justice, number one, it means a very different thing to Catholicism in this time than it does when people use the term today. People who use social justice today do not think of it in a religious. Social justice is a Catholic term in this time and period. It very much is considered one. It's something the church cares a lot about, right? But cares about from its standpoint. I'm not saying you should view the Catholic Church in the 30s as woke in a modern sense.
This is, you know what? Yeah. This is a good clarification for me.
Yeah. But Father Coughlin's Union Party is anti-capitalist and anti-monopolist, right? Because anti-monopolism is like the big populist interest at the time, is like trust busting in the U.S. So if you are populist, you have to be anti-monopoly, kind of regardless of whether you come down. And that's just the way things work in America at this point in time. So again, the fact this might sound like Coughlin is somewhat on the left, he's not at all. He's just kind of going for the big populist interest at the time, which include a lot of trust busting. And Coughlin does add a shitload of anti-Semitism in the mix, which makes it clear that he is still just warming up a chunk of Nazi politics, right? It's just a slightly different chunk than the one Dilling finds appealing. And, obviously added into this mix, he also puts a lot of hatred of the New Deal. Per an article in the Bentley Historical Library of the University of Michigan, quote, the National Union for Social Justice teamed up with Francis Townsend, an activist, and Gerald L.K. Smith, an organizer and white supremacist, to form the Union Party. The express goal of the Union Party was to unseat Roosevelt in the 1936 presidential election. They put forward their own candidate, William Lemke, hoping Lemke could draw enough votes away from Roosevelt to allow Alf Landon, the Republican candidate, to win. So again, they're both trying to get Landon to win, both her and like Dilling and Coughlin, but they're doing it in very different ways. Dilling is trying to support the Republican Party the traditional way. Coughlin is trying to sabotage FDR's campaign by drawing votes away from Roosevelt so that Landon wins. That's what his hope for a third party is, right? Now, the problem is that Coughlin also, not only does he attach his name to this attempt, he makes a public promise that if the Union Party doesn't get 9 million votes in November, he will retire from public life. If I can't bring 9 million votes to Lemke in November, I'll get off the air. You'll never hear from Father Coughlin again. Now, had Father Coughlin moved 9 million votes, that would have been 20% of the total votes cast in 1936, which is no one's ever had that kind of popularity. Fucking Joe Rogan could never have claimed 20% of the electorate moved because of his fucking actions. Father Coughlin is not even coming close to this, right? He fumbles historically. The Union Party can't even get 1 million votes.
Very funny.
Now, because he'd promised, Father Coughlin does briefly quit his radio show, although he comes back like 2 months later, something like that.
I never said I'd go away forever.
Well, he says, I said I'd go away forever, and I was going to, but then a friend of mine who just died on his deathbed, his last wish was that I start being on the radio again. What could I do? I'm not going to say no to my friend's dying wish, right?
Robert,
everything.
Katie and Robert, I promise my dying wish will not be that you do more podcasts.
No, Sophie's dying wish was that I get $11 million to spend on heroin. You know, she always said, I hope Robert gets $11 million for heroin.
But I did say
always specified heroin.
$11 million for Robert's joy of choice.
Yeah, it means heroin. Yeah.
I know.
That's very generous of you in your death.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, heroin. It's good for. It's not.
It's not, but it is time for an ad.
I mean, it's better than today's drugs.
Perfect timing.
These fentanyl these kids are doing. Yeah, fucking heroin's basically Ozempic compared to that shit. Anyway, here's ads.
In the moment, it felt like it was going on forever. I didn't think I was going to live. I was terrified.
There was no anything inside those eyes. They turned black. It scared the hell out of me.
That was your first murder case?
Yes, sir.
Fair to say this was the biggest case of your career?
Yes, sir. Rape and murder of a 12-year-old child.
As bad as it gets.
I would think so.
People, wake up! I'm the one that saw the murder take place by Krivek and DePippo.
Anthony DePippo showed no signs of remorse, appearing unfazed after being sentenced to the maximum.
I said I'm not guilty. I'll take it to the grave.
Listen to The Devil's Quarry on the iHeart Radio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. And to hear The Devil's Quarry ad-free with exclusive content, subscribe to Lava for Good Plus on Apple Podcasts.
What did Black music, food, and culture teach us about who we were becoming?
2016 was sort of that last era of monoculture, where we still consumed things in community.
From Beyonce and Rihanna.
Everybody wanted to be Beyonce.
I don't think we'll ever see another Rihanna.
To soul food, memory, identity, and the stories we carry through Black culture.
What does it mean to be Black and eat in America?
So we were this group of people who knew how to work the land, who knew how to live with the land.
We make it do what it do. Therapy for Black Girls is bringing together the conversation shaping Black life right now.
You will never make me feel bad for being a Black girl, for being a Black American girl, ever.
Therapy for Black Girls is bringing it all to the mic. Listen to Therapy for Black Girls on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hi, it's Alec Baldwin. This season on my podcast, Here's the Thing, I'm speaking with more artists, policymakers, and performers like composer Mark Shaman.
Once you've established that you have the talent, it's about the hang. It's the pleasure of hanging out with the people that you're with. You know, Rob and I was always a great hang. We would sit and kibitz for hours and then eventually get around to the music. That's what I mostly think of when I think of him, the time together laughing.
Lawyer Robbie Kaplan.
The great gift of being a lawyer is the ability to actually change things in our society in a way that very few people can. I mean, you can really make a difference to causes in the United States if you bring the right case at the right time. And
Marriage
win.
equality.
Yeah, Windsor's the perfect example.
Director Morgan Neville.
Film school teaches you all the wrong things about making documentary. What do you want to say? Documentary is all about your ear. What do you hear? I feel like my job is listening really, really hard.
Listen to Here's the Thing on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
I'm Mangesh Atikadar, and I'm back with a new season of the podcast Skyline Drive. This time I'm diving into a rabbit hole of peptides, organoids, blood boys, blue zones, and brain replacement to try to understand what this longevity obsession is all about and what it really means to live forever for all of us. I learned about some rad science.
I can make a brain for you, and then we can test what drug is the best for your brain, as opposed to his brain.
Here are some hard truths.
I would expect Indians to age faster, but I did not expect it to be almost a 4 to 5 year acceleration.
And get myself into a world of trouble.
I'd say probably start bone smashing.
That doesn't work.
To make it look more defined. They say it works. I don't know.
Listen to Skyline Drive, How to Live Forever on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
We're back. Probably shouldn't be comparing heroin to Ozempic. We still want to get that sweet, sweet Ozempic money. Ozempic, I don't know much about whether or not it's good for you, actually. So I feel weird about advertising it.
So we stay neutral around here.
Seems like we need more longitudinal data before I'm going to be doing that.
Sometimes it's like
I'm not against it. I just don't understand.
I'm not against drugs that help people. I'm against advertising drugs that I can't vouch for.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, dick pills are one thing. I just worry about, like, encouraging everyone to take that shit when we don't know enough about it yet.
We also, like, don't do hair loss drugs
you.
ads because we know that shit doesn't work. Like,
I think it does now is the weird, like, I didn't want to do hair loss ads because, like, when I was a kid, Alex Jones, like, that was always the thing that meant something was shady. But I think, like, there are actual hair loss solutions now that aren't bullshit. Like, but I'm not super knowledgeable about that world, as you can tell by my head of hair.
Like, what's that? Like minoxidil or whatever.
Minoxidil.
Like, yeah, I think it is real, right? Like, there are real stuff
there's
now.
Success.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, whatever. Do whatever you want. Your gender affirming care is your gender affirming care. Just look at it that way.
Hell yeah.
That's what a baldness cure is for men.
Just don't blame me.
Yeah, that's what testosterone supplements are for, like fucking RFK Jr. who wants to stay swole in his 60s, even though he can't fucking do a proper bench press. My God, man. Like, Jesus.
He's
sorry.
An embarrassment.
It's a mess.
Fine. That's
it's
a fun
mess.
tangent.
Yeah. So Father Coughlin quits his radio show, and then he's like, my friend's dying wish was that I would be racist on the radio one last time. So he goes back, but Coughlin can't go back to the simple life of a radio priest who made anti-Semitic propaganda anymore. He's got the politics bug now, and he can't quit. So he starts complaining on the air that the Vatican has been infiltrated by communist agents. Now, here's the thing. I'm not an expert on Catholicism, but my understanding of the way it works is that if you are a Catholic priest, the Pope is your boss. Mm-hmm. And like any employment situation, you're not supposed to just like get out in front of the media and say, my boss is being manipulated by communists secretly. Your boss might get pissed at you because you're not supposed to be talking shit like that. You're a subordinate to the Pope, right? And to these other anyway. Father Coughlin is getting out of pocket, and he's pissing off the rest of the Catholic hierarchy, and he is accountable to that hierarchy. He's not a free agent. No Catholic priest is if they want to continue being a Catholic priest. It's kind of an important fact about how Catholicism works. So this sparks a chain of events that leads to Father Coughlin having his operating permit revoked and being taken off the air for another few months. And when he's taken off the air for the second time, Elizabeth Dilling feels his loss keenly. She was convinced that her fave had only suffered so because communist agents had infiltrated the United States. She formed the Patriotic Research Bureau, an organization dedicated to clearing Father Coughlin's name. She was its only member and put out a monthly bulletin to her mailing list. As always, she solicited donations. No, I mean, she has a lot of readers. But she's the only, member of this. List. Yeah. And she solicits donations because she's got all these, like, anyone who's ever been interested in her shit, she has their address and she'll just mail them shit. And if they want to send her money, they'll send money back. And that's kind of what keeps her going. It's a proto-Patreon type thing, right?
I was going to say, a little Patreon.
Exactly. Dilling herself was very open about the small donations that kept her in business. And when you read her description of the things that fans sent her, it does sound weirdly like a modern, like, right-wing crowdfunding kind of deal. Quote, one woman who's in, and this is Liz talking, one woman whose income was $40 a month and who was going blind sold a $100 bond for $77 and sent $75 to Dilling. An elderly man who worked as a cement mixer sent her $100 and left everything he owned to Dilling in his will. Right? This is kind of how
she should be ashamed of herself.
Like, puts out what people are, right? Because this is partly advertising. Exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah,
I interjected too
This
soon,
is shameful. The reason she's saying it this way is that, like, so if you're sick and going blind and only have a little bit of money, you should send it to me because, you care about this country, right? Give me everything you've got, It is very much like that give till it hurts evangelical impulse.
Yeah. Cleanse your soul by giving me all your money.
That's right. She urged her Catholic followers. One of the other things I find funny, so she's not just soliciting for donations in a really modern crowdfunding way. She's attempting to weaponize and turn her audience into a tool for her activism in a very modern way. She starts urging her readers who are Catholics to send letters to the Vatican, to flood the Vatican with letters. And a number of them do, because she prints a form letter with her monthly issue of the bulletin that they can just fill out and send to the Vatican. This form letter read, quote, "Holy Father, we plead for our Father Coughlin. Have him continue his radio broadcasts in the same heartfelt way, not in censored platitudes which defeat the dignity God bestowed on man, but as an alter Christus, fearless and outspoken, going about doing his Father's business, spreading the doctrine of the mystical body, a brotherhood of man with the fatherhood in God, to confute the atheistic communism and other godlessisms, to continue to espouse the cause of the poor, for the rich have ample means. Holy Father, many of us were tricked by artful propaganda, but now we humbly ask your holiness to give us back our Father Coughlin, as he should be, free and unrestrained in preaching the doctrine of Christ to the poor and to all who will listen." So that's the form letter she puts together for these people. And today, I don't think the Vatican would respond to a handful of form letters being sent from some American cranks, but this was the late 30s. The idea that American Catholics could write letters and have them reliably reach the Vatican in just a couple weeks, that's a pretty new idea. In the 1930s, random people have not been able to just send a letter to the Vatican for a very long time. That's a really new concept. And the church has zero experience dealing with a fan write-in campaign. No one really has experience with fan write-in campaigns. And that's what this amounted to. If you want to know like why Star Trek is a thing, it's because they organized after Star Trek got canceled, the original series, one of the first fan write-in campaigns. And like no one had been, I mean, technically there had been some things like that before, but it hadn't really ever happened before. And so for the first time, a bunch of studio suits see like fans sending in letters about a show, and are like, wait a second, is there money in this? You know?
Right.
Like, and it's a similar thing here where like the Vatican is like, whoa, this must really mean a lot of people are pissed off at what we've did. If 4 or 5 letters have showed up in the Vatican,
4 or 5 letters show
I don't know
up.
how many show
It
up
must
exactly.
represent
but
everybody.
any amount, right, seems like a lot back then because the church
Yeah.
has no experience dealing with this sort of shit. So the Pope folds, or at least someone in the Vatican folds. And by December of 1937, it was okayed for Father Coughlin to take to the airwaves again in January of 1938. Everyone was thrilled when he returned, and in short order, he forms a fascist club called the Christian Front, which kind of sounds like a militia in that it described itself, like Father Coughlin described it as a literal crusade against anti-Christian elements in American culture. Now,
is it not a militia? Did somebody borrow that?
It kind of was.
Okay.
He was on the edge of trying to frame it as a militia, sure, but he has to kind of pull back on this because not long after he introduces the Christian Front in 1938, Kristallnacht happens. Like the Nazis do Kristallnacht in Germany, and there's mobs burning synagogues, breaking Jewish buildings, murdering people in the street, all sorts of horrific shit. And the world's conscience is shocked. This is widely reported on, and people are horrified. In part because folks like Elizabeth Dilling had been saying there's no racism in Nazi Germany. They're just having to defend themselves periodically against the violence of the Jews. But it's entirely defensive. And this Kristallnacht makes it impossible to continue that lie. Right?
Yeah.
Afterwards, the owner of Coughlin's main station demanded to take an early look at the script for his next broadcast, like the day after Kristallnacht. This guy's like, we need to look at what he's going to put out before we let that hit the air.
Probably smart.
And sure enough, he finds the script filled with angry and insane allegations against the Jewish people, and he demanded changes. Father Coughlin did alter the script, but in his final broadcast, he still claimed that Kristallnacht hadn't been anyone's fault, really. Or at least it hadn't been any Christian's fault. And so it wasn't something any Americans should concern themselves over. Okay. His attitude was more like, this was just a natural reaction, in part because of all the bad things the Jews have done. But, you know, to whatever you could blame maybe the government of Germany for, it has nothing to do with Christianity. And it's nothing Americans should be concerned by. And you shouldn't feel bad for these Jews, really. You know, that's kind of his attitude. He's a massive piece of shit. He's one of the worst people who ever lived. Now, this makes a lot of people very angry, but not Liz Dilling. She fucking loves Father Coughlin. However, she soon had to devote her time to less enjoyable things. The 1940 elections were coming up. And once again, Dilling intended to do her part to replace FDR with a proper nationalist. The fact that another world war was obviously coming made the concern even more immediate. Elizabeth couldn't bear to see the United States oppose Nazi Germany. In 1938, she actually visited Germany, attending the Nuremberg rally that year and loving it. She goes to a fucking Nuremberg rally. Liz Dilling. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. She could not be just the Naziest Nazi, whoever Nazi this lady.
Jesus.
It's very funny. One of my favorite things, because Liz Dilling, her writing is still somewhat popular among the far right today. In fact, in like 2011 or so, fucking Glenn Beck quoted her on his show and tried to get people to read, I think it was the Red Network. So she periodically comes back up. But you can find her writing on like outright neo-Nazi websites. And I've read some articles from actual modern Nazis who will criticize her by being like, she didn't actually know anything about National Socialist ideology. Like, she was not knowledgeable about the tenets of National Socialism. And they're right about this. Like, Liz, I know more about Nazism than Liz Dilling ever did, right? Like, she is not well read about what the Nazis believe, because all that matters to her is that they hate the Jews and the communists, right? Like, that's what really matters about Nazism, you know? So Liz was never a Nazi in the sense that she actually understood a lot of what Hitler wanted, but she was a Nazi in the more important sense that she understood all that Hitler really needed her to understand about him, which is, you know, these people hate Jews and communists, right? You know, that's it. After World War II started in 1939, agents of the German state and the U.S. tried to use Liz as a voice, and she was invited to speak at the German-American Bund gatherings that year, while she extolled the virtues of the Germany that she had briefly seen. As the next presidential election wound closer, Liz again readied herself for feverish activity. Unfortunately, there were again no Republicans who met with her approval. Thomas Dewey had prosecuted the leader of the German-American Bund, and Robert A. Taft had worked for the AFL as a lawyer. Arthur Vandenberg, a conservative Michigan senator Dilling otherwise liked, backed the hated New Deal. Bereft of hope, Elizabeth penned an essay about her breathless desire for a presidential man on a white horse. This is like one of the very first, and you'll see bits of this today, like American conservatives yearning for like an American Pinochet or an American Caesar. Elizabeth's the first person to really write this out in a very direct way, where she says, God, all we need is our own sexy, charismatic fascist. If only we had a Hitler. She's the first right-winger in America to write an if only we had a Hitler piece. Jesus and I'm going to quote from Dye's thesis here. She proclaimed in her essay that there had to be a better candidate out there who could defeat Roosevelt. Elizabeth encouraged the Democratic nominee to step forward and let it be known that he could end communism single-handedly. The public enjoyed her so much that they felt encouraged to take up arms and look for a better presidential candidate. Eventually, Elizabeth came to terms, as she did in the 1936 election, that she must support the candidate who opposed Roosevelt. Without any type of enthusiasm, Dilling supported Wendell L. Willkie for president. And this doesn't work, you know. The situation is about as dire as it can be for Liz. You know, democracy's hanging in the balance. And so Elizabeth knows what she has to do. The only thing that could possibly defeat FDR's political machine and save the United States. She has to write a book so racist she can only publish it under a pseudonym. It's the only way to win. It's the only way to save America. Something so racist I can't put it out under my own name.
Yeah.
I got to hunker down and write a book so racist that in 1940, I don't feel safe putting my name as a white woman on it.
Beautiful. Perfect. No notes. Also, the self-hatred in that as well of people will take it more seriously under some other name probably. I'm assuming she chose a man's name.
Wow. Yes.
Did
Katie.
I choose? Yeah, okay. I'm assuming correctly.
Yeah. So the octopus was billed as an expose of the shadowy network of influence behind the New Deal and Roosevelt. Now, when you hear octopus in the title of something written by an anti-Semite, anyone who knows their Nazi political cartoons thinks of this image. Sophie's going to put it on screen right now. There's a few versions of this political cartoon, but these are all political cartoons from Nazi Germany that feature usually like a globe and then an octopus that's like reaching its tentacles out over the world, and there's like a Star of David on the octopus's head or over the octopus, and the octopus like has a face that's like a caricature of a Jewish man sometimes. There's a few variants of this you'll see, right? But it's like an octopus meant to sort of represent the extensive Jewish conspiracy, right?
Yeah.
So Dilling's book, The Octopus, was in fact so racist that the fake name she picked, she can't just go with even a normal fake name. She has to make it the fake name of a religious leader so that maybe people won't find it as racist. So her pseudonym is the Reverend Frank Woodruff Johnson.
Okay.
Yeah, that'll make people ignore the racism.
That'll do
Reverend Frank Woodruff Johnson.
Sure.
As Dye explains, quote, when people wrote to Dilling with questions about the Jewish faith, she often referred them to Johnson's fine book. The Jews can never prove that I'm anti-Semitic, she said. I'm too clever for them. I think I might be able to prove you're anti-Semitic. That sentence,
Seems
for
pretty
example,
easy.
does
That
a good
sentence
job.
Alone does it.
Yeah. That's really all I got to do. Yeah, that's the Bechtel cast for anti-Semitism right there. The Bechtel test. Yeah. Dilling arranged for Hudson, a Jew-baiting pamphleteer in Omaha, Nebraska, to distribute her book. For an idea of how bad the book was, I'm just going to read you one brief snippet from the text. Did Americans get a truthful impression from the press about the communist, socialist, anarchist, church-burning Spanish government strongly favored by Jewry? This is part of her talking about, like, during the Spanish Civil War, how, like, anarchists and kind of left-wing elements would, like, light Catholic churches on fire, because in part they were also opposing the Catholic Church, which was backing the Francoist regime.
Yeah.
And she's divorcing all of that from its historical context and just saying, the Jews did it!
The Jews
burnt all the churches! Yeah. And also just that, like, the church burning's favored by Jewry. We took a poll and they all love it. In a shock turn of events, The Octopus was not a bestseller and did not impact the election in any way. The United States entered World War II, no matter how much Father Coughlin and Liz Dilling shouted that it shouldn't. Liz was also an active member of the America First Committee and helped to found the Mothers Movement, which was a protest campaign that was like a last-minute attempt to try to shame America into not entering the war against the Nazis. And here's how Lillian Greenwald describes the Mothers Movement that this is like kind of her last big hurrah at trying to create a political movement. Here's how Lillian Greenwald describes the protests that they took part in 1941. This was for an article on fascism in America. Under Miss Dilling's guidance, the Mothers promptly went on a rampage. While Congress was considering matters of grave importance to our national destiny, they were exploiting all the techniques of mass pressure with a few womanly frills of their own. They deluged congressmen with pleas, threats, imprecations, and cajolery by way of letters, telegrams, petitions, and personal visits. Alternatively, as it suited their purpose, they dabbed genteelly at their eyes with delicate white handkerchiefs or howled lustily in burlesque heartbreak. In August of 1940, more than 100 Detroit and Cleveland mothers descended on Washington, where in a Roman holiday spirit they hanged Senator Claude Pepper in effigy. Later, swathed in funeral garments, they established a death watch over the Senate while it debated the conscription bill. The mothers were excluded from the Senate gallery but allowed to use the Senate reception hall. Their major coup was the Mothers' Crusade against 1776, a demonstration which sought to prevent the passage of the Lynn-Lease Bill in February to March 1941. Marshaled by Miss Dilling, with Charles B. Hudson, editor of the rabid anti-Semitic dope sheet America in Danger, stage managing behind the scenes, about 500 embattled mothers stormed the halls of Congress.
Wow.
So, yeah.
That's a lot of histrionics and theatrical
it's
displays
really
there.
close. Yeah.
Ooh.
And she's just hoping no one can critique a mother for being concerned about their sons dying, and using that to, like, you're not concerned about people dying, you're concerned about people stopping Hitler. That's what this is about.
Right.
And
you don't actually care about their sons fighting in a war at all. You just don't want to intervene.
There's a beautiful moment. You can tell how much this pisses people off. Senator Carter Glass, who's like a Southern senator and is like this very much like a Southern hospitality politesse kind of, you're never supposed to be like rude, especially to women in public. He gets asked about these protests and he's like, I believe it would be pertinent to inquire whether they are mothers. I don't believe these are moms. Let's check it out.
Great quote.
Mm-hmm. Once the U.S. entered World War II, Dilling continued to speak out against it, decrying rationing and blaming the Jews for everything. She was ultimately charged under the Smith Act for sedition in July of 1942.
Oh.
This was part of the unfortunately short-lived Brown Scare, in which the federal government briefly turned its efforts to finding and prosecuting fascist sympathizers. The resulting trial, U.S. v. Winrod, included 26 defendants, and Dilling lost top billing to another fascist we've discussed on this show. She denied trying to incite a mutiny in the armed forces by distributing fascist propaganda, and in 1944, the case expanded to charging the defendants for their involvement in a worldwide Nazi movement. The charges were dismissed in 1946, because the evidence that they'd actually violated U.S. law was pretty weak. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, the long-term effect of the Brown Scare was, per Christine Erickson, to give a government stamp of approval for targeting unpopular dissidents who disagreed with the political status quo, thereby helping to set the stage for the McCarthy witch hunt. And that they did. right? The brown scare doesn't amount to much. The red scare uses the brown scare, some of the precedent it had set, to go after the opposite kind of people. Elizabeth Dilling's work was cited during the Red Scare by Joseph McCarthy repeatedly, and in the post-war period, she predictably became a vociferous Holocaust denier. Not super shocking, right?
Not shocking at all.
Yeah. Good stuff.
Oh, God, everything's so depressing.
It's
again, how little things change. All of
little
this,
things
it's like,
change.
yep, predictable.
Yeah, everything's dumb.
I've heard that before.
Yeah.
A Holocaust denier. Okay.
Holocaust denier. Yeah, she gets into that growth industry.
I certainly understand at this point in time how. Actually, I don't really understand how people can be Holocaust deniers. I don't. But I understand that they are at this point.
It's convenient.
However,
it's convenient.
Immediately after the Holocaust, how does Holocaust denial land with people? Not
it's
good?
Convenient.
Convenient.
It's easy. Yeah, it's convenient.
Yeah.
It's easy. Yeah, most of her life is not that interesting after this point. She does write a book even more racist than The Octopus, which you can still find in Nazi bookstores and Telegram channels to this day.
Is it called Even More Racist Than the Octopus?
Yeah, even more racist than The Octopus. Racist and Even More Racist. Her two books. One of her favorite conspiracy theories later in life is that Dwight Eisenhower, was a secret Jew. He's hiding it.
Okay.
He's keeping it hidden.
Oh, the
Dwight Eisenhower.
secret Jew things.
Secretly
Okay.
Jewish. Yeah. She also include JFK's new frontier of being the Jew frontier. So, great, real creative at the end of her life.
She seriously would kill on Twitter these days.
Yeah. By the end of her days, Liz couldn't even support Barry Goldwater because his running mate had been a prosecutor at Nuremberg. She's too much of a fascist for Barry Goldwater.
Wow.
You know what's cool, though?
Hateful person.
Do you guys know what's really cool,
Yeah.
though? She's dead.
She is dead. She dies
When
April
she died?
30th, 1966 in Lincoln, Nebraska. Yep.
Hope it hurt.
Yeah. Fingers crossed.
Jeez.
Yep.
Liz, I just flipped my pencil.
I know.
Yep.
I saw Katie
Frustration.
I saw Katie getting angry and angrier.
Yeah. It's frustrating.
But she is dead, so there is that. But it does feel like her spirit lives on in far too many people.
Yep.
And it is depressing always.
Yep.
To see how little has changed. The attacks, the phrasing of the attacks, the lies. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, it's cool. I love it. Well, Katie, where can people find you online?
Thank you for asking. You can find me over at Some More News. And Even More News. We do a few shows a week with Cody Johnston. We've got a Patreon.
Hey, I love that guy.
We do live streams sometimes now. Getting the hang of it.
Yeah.
It's fun. It's new. It's different. I don't know how people do it every day.
Yeah.
But it feels like a party. So check us out. Look at our socials and you'll see when we're live streaming and it's fun.
Yep.
Yay.
Cool. We'll check that out. And check out this podcast next week when we'll have someone else for you. Hopefully who isn't this person. Definitely who isn't this person. But I don't know who it'll be. I can't read the
Hopefully.
future.
I don't know. I would come back.
Yeah. What is this? My podcast? Oh, wait. Yeah, shit. All right. Well,
Kind of.
We're done, anyone. Go away.
All right. Bye.
Behind the Bastards is a production of Cool Zone Media. For more from Cool Zone Media, visit our website, coolzonemedia.com, or check us out on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. Full video episodes of Behind the Bastards are now streaming on Netflix, dropping every Tuesday and Thursday. Hit Remind Me on Netflix so you don't miss an episode. For clips and our older episode catalog, continue to subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/@BehindTheBastards. We love about 40% of you, statistically speaking.
There was no anything inside those eyes. They turned black. It scared the hell out of me.
People, wake up! I'm the one that saw the murder take place by Krebeck and DePippo.
Anthony DePippo showed no signs of remorse, appearing unfazed after being sentenced to the maximum.
I said I'm not guilty. I'll take it to the grave.
Listen to The Devil's Quarry in the Bone Valley feed on the iHeart Radio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Paul Verzi here, and I want to talk to you about Paul's Best Podcast on Will Ferrell's Big Money Players Network and iHeartRadio. I sit down each week with a special guest, and we discuss the absolute best of things. Pete Davidson.
It's that, and then there's everything else.
Bill Burr.
Dude, his whole life has sounded like the first drop of a roller coaster. Just like
Mark Norman.
I mean, I can't even tell you, Paul, how crazy it was. It was insane.
Listen to Paul's Best Podcast on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
I've been hearing for decades that the markets can solve climate change. Today, we have more incentives for market solutions than ever, and emissions are rising. On this season of Drilled, Carbon Cowboys, the story of 3 market solutions colliding in one multinational boondoggle.
You gotta give Bruce and the guys credit. They're Republicans. They don't give a shit about any of this stuff.
Listen on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
It's Latino USA. I'm Maria Hinojosa. I sit down with New York City Mayor Zoran Mandani to talk about sports, immigration, politics, and the serious question of what makes a great New York City taco. But Mr. Mayor, as a Mexican, what have I done? What makes the best taco in New York City?
Oh, my God.
Listen to Latino USA on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed Human.